There's a massive difference when I walk into my classes with a stride of my step, excited about what I'm going to teach, as opposed to, oh, this is something I've just got to get through. And that's why I like starting every lesson with a consolidation activity that's high energy, high enthusiasm, a bit of competition, and a lot of noise. Charades is perfect for that. This is a minimal prep, max effect consolidation game that not only do the students enjoy, but it's got real benefits for learning as well. So I know you probably already do charades in your classes, but there's a couple of tips that you might not have thought of. And so in this video, I want to explain how I do it in my classes, a couple of tips I've learned over the years to make it even more effective. I'm going to finish by explaining the 5 things I try to get my students to do in every lesson. So typically, charades is played by writing down names of movies, TV shows, books, and then you've got to act it out, right, with all those clues and try to guess it. Well, we can do that in a classroom, but we swap those titles for key terms. And you saw my previous video on key terms traffic lights. This is one advantage of creating that list of key terms at the beginning of a unit that I know this is what I want students to learn. It makes planning activities like this charades really easy. So we're going to act out these key terms from the unit. So we need a list of key terms. 2 ways to do that. One is I can create it ahead of time, and here's this website that I really like that gives these templates. Real simple, just to type it in there, print it, hit save, you've got it for good. I'll put a link in the description to a random list that I just created off the top of my head. So you've got something there, your next lesson saves you a few minutes, just print that out, cut them out, and now you're ready to go to try this if you haven't already played charades in your classes. You've got that list to go from. So one way is we can do it ourselves. The upside to that is you save time in the class, but the downside is it takes about 10 minutes to prep. Now, another way, which I always use, is I get the students to write the list themselves. Going back to one of the classic first rules of teaching I learned in my teacher training, the golden rule, don't do anything yourself that you can get students to do for you. Now, I only ever use that rule if it actually has a benefit for the students. And in this case, it does. I tell my students, all right, here's a piece of paper. So I'll walk around the classroom and I'll hand out pieces of paper, 2 per student, and I say, write down 2 key terms from this unit or from what we've learned recently that you think everyone should know, but not everyone will think to write. And in that way, hopefully, they're going to be important terminology, but not the same words, right? The most obvious ones like the title of the unit coming back again and again. So 2 pieces of paper, students write it down. I hit 2 minutes on my trusty kitchen timer so they know there's a limit. It's not going to take forever to try to get these key terms so we can start playing. And then here's my first pro tip. While they're working on writing out their key terms and before they bring them up to the front, I will sit down there and I will just write a few myself. Now, these are nothing to do with what we're learning. These are horrendously random, like banana, a bald head, monkey, that's some of my favorites, rugby, like whatever I happen to think of. And I tell the students, before we start playing, I've added some random words into this list. The reason for that is if you don't do it, I found that students will just start saying out all the words, key terms from the unit without actually paying any attention to what the student at the front of the class is doing, right? They're just going through the brain, hippocampus, amygdala, blah, 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 right? And so that just protects against that. All right, so now I sit at the front of the classroom, kids bring up their words, I vet out some of the random ones or too many repeats, and I'm creating a nice little list there. I've done 0 preparation for that activity. Everything's happening in the class. So now I've got my stack of key terms ready to go. Divide the class into about teams of 4 to 6. I find that works well. If you've got bigger classes, I'd love to hear how you manage that in yours. I'm lucky I've got smaller classes. Teams of 4 to 6, list of terms ready to go. But there's one last instruction I always remind my students about. Might even play this clip from Family Guy.
A jackal! Jackal! It's a jackal! It looks like a jackal! 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 It's a jackal! Jackal!
Time!
It wasn't right the first time you said it. Why the hell would it be right the next 10 times? God!
That happens every class, where students will just yell and yell and yell, and I just remind them, hey, look, like that's just, if they hear you, it's not the word, move on. And that's the thing with charades. There's so much volume that goes in this class, and I love it because it's positive volume, it's positive noise. And we often have teachers from other classrooms, one in particular, come in and knock and say, hey, do you guys mind quietening down? Which I don't mind telling students, hey, yeah, let's not disrupt everyone, but it's a good sign to me, right, that the kids are so fired up about what we're doing in class that they're making that much noise. Anyway, now we're ready to start. Here's a few pro tips for you that I've found are really effective. Number one, I don't choose students to start. I just hit 8 minutes on the timer. That's a pretty good amount of time, 8 minutes. I don't want to play too long or too short. I just hit 8 minutes, hit start, put that on the whiteboard and say, all right, clock's ticking. And then suddenly like, oh, they send someone up the front. Second rule, everyone has to go once in the group before a person can go again, real basic. Third, they keep their score by simply keeping the papers that they got right. So if you get it right, you just take that back to your group. Simple way of keeping score. I just sit back at the front of the desk and watch the drama unfold, and it's really fun. I really enjoy this activity. The other rule is that, what's my other rule? If they get stuck on a word, then you can do a couple of things. Now, I've actually only just thought of this now, so I never do this in my class, but it could work. A 30-second phone your friend, where if they get stuck on it for 30 seconds or so, then they can get someone else up to try to help them act it out. Again, I've never done that. I've just thought of it now. Be a cool thing. But the one that I have done and works, well, it's simply a 1-minute pass. You don't want one group to get stuck on a word for 8 minutes and then they never get a chance to actually go through, right, the cycle. So after 1 minute, they can pass. They bring the word back. Someone new has a turn, goes up, and you just put that at the bottom, right? Another thing, if one group tears out ahead and then there's another group stuck, I might just write a pretty obscure one or a couple of random ones to throw them on top of the deck. I think that's all the rules. They're just a few tweaks, right? The devil's in the detail for making these activities really successful. And it's funny, just the small changes we make that make a big difference. Hence, I'm making this video. Everyone knows how to do charades in a classroom, probably, but these little tricks might help. Here's why I love this activity, because not only is it fun and engaging and it takes zero planning time, but actually it's really effective for recap. The students, if we get them to write down the list of key terms, they are reviewing, okay, what's the key terminology I've been learning so far? And we can't underestimate, right, the value of these building blocks of knowledge, of the vocabulary we're learning in these units. So they're recapping when they're coming up with the words they want to write down. They're recapping when they're watching the person in the front of the classroom and they're trying to think about what could this person be doing. Hopefully, it's almost like they're going through the Rolodex of information that's been covered in this unit. And then they're hearing all these words around them from other people. So if they can't remember stuff, their memory's being jogged by what everyone else says. And you know how it is when someone says something like, oh yeah, what about, right? And then we're reviewing that way. Now, do I do a post-assessment to see how effective charades was at generating these ideas and reviewing the key terminology? No. We just get straight into the lesson after that, right? I'm not going to do assessment to death. I'm assuming it works. I'm hoping it works, and that's it. I'm going to move on. So in every lesson, I'm trying to get students to do 5 things. When I write my lesson plan, which you can download from a previous video, by the way, I'll try to put the link there. When I look at my lesson plan, I try to make sure I've given them a chance to speak, to listening every lesson they're going to listen, to read, to write, and to move. And it's that last one that's always tricky for me, right? The first 4 is pretty basic. We can ingrain that, and that naturally occurs in most lessons. But it's the movement part that I often struggle with. I like charades because it is high-octane energy from the beginning, and there's some movement there at least. And I want to get some movement about halfway through or 3/4 through my lesson as well, so students aren't sitting down for 45 minutes in one go. But at least this, I know I've got some sort of movement in my class. Now, Pictionary, the exact same rules apply. We just draw it instead of acting it out. Now, where does Charadonary come from? Well, that's just what I call Pictionary and charades. I give the students complete autonomy. You choose. Do you want to draw it? Do you want to act it? Do you want to do both? Up to you, as long as you don't say it or use letters or like write down the words. And that's it. One of my favorite simple activities to start lessons. My units are about 20 lessons long. And so I try to do this about once per unit because like Kahoot or like crossword puzzles, like any activity in classrooms, if you do this to death, students will get sick of it. But every few weeks, it's kind of fun. All right, if you've got suggestions on how to improve this, then please pop them in the comments. If you're a student and you play this game, you love it, let me know. You hate it, let me know. I'm keen to hear your thoughts as well. If you want to get in touch, if you've got ideas, please use the contact, write a comment or use the contact forum. The reason I started this channel is I know every school has a few teacher geeks, and by ourselves, we're limited in our access to information and ideas. But if we unite and collaborate and share these simple, practical, minimal prep, max effect activities that will make classrooms better, imagine what could happen in the future. Now, I'm not thinking about anything bigger than just I want my lessons to be cool and engaging and fun for students. I don't think, like, that's my primary job as a teacher, to make, when students come into my class, the world washes away and we immerse ourselves in whatever we're doing for that hour. So I need your help. Please get in touch. Thank you. Bye.